Welcome back to Real Life Reviews and welcome to a fresh new month. Well, at least it will be when this is published. Now I'm starting this video with a little bit of, well, good news from our point of view. We're chuffed. We last week beat GTN, the Global Triathlon Network, to two big items of news, in particular the Global Triathlon Awards and who got what, and also the news about Race Ranger in New Zealand. We're not trying to put GTN down at all. We understand that we all have the dates that we publish videos, when we record them, and when the news is happening. And if they just interlink in the right way, we'll get there first, and sometimes GTN will get there first. But we were pretty pleased with that. Sticking with Race Ranger though, just for a moment, and to add to it, and by the way, those of you who haven't come across Race Ranger before, have a look at our last week's vlog, but it's the, I'm going to use the term radar, it's a little radar system. You put receivers on the bike, rear and front, and it warns you, you set them for a distance, and it warns you when you are encroaching or someone is encroaching you or getting close to the draft distance that you've set it for. It means that if you're catching up with someone and it tells you either when you need to make that effort to overtake or when you just need to ease off a little, get out of that drafting zone and just make sure you hit your rhythm. Similarly, if you're the bike in front, it means that you can enable the overtake to happen if the person's overtaking and you're aware of what's going on. Plus, the referees on the bikes, on the motorbikes, also get an idea of the right distance. Now, since the event in New Zealand, the pros have been talking a bit more about it and their views and what they thought of it. And I think it's fair to say it was an overwhelming success. But in the press, in interviews and in their own Twitter feeds, Instagram, etc., it's quite interesting to see that a large number of the pros were quite struck by how close they could get. That their judgment of, and I think it was 10 metres in this case, their judgment of 10 metres would have been further back than what Race Ranger was saying. It enabled them to get closer than they thought, which in my mind raises a pretty obvious question. Have people been being given penalties when they shouldn't have in the past? I'm also pretty pleased because I've just had a delivery of cleats from Wiggle so that I can get rid of the really worn cleats that I've got currently in my tri-shoes, cycling shoes, etc. And also have a new spare set as I've gone through all my spares. These came from Wiggle, and I'm bound to say in the description down below is a link to Wiggle, and anything you buy through that link, we get just a tiny percentage. You pay no more. In fact, you can get some good deals, and it all helps keep the channel going. And if you are interested, perhaps preempt question, these are the grey, that's the 4.5 degree float. You can also get them in red, 9 degree float, and black, 0 degree float. Moving on, and we will return to the news in a moment. Really nice comment last week from Sean Merritt. He says, C-swim, dots, crazy. Yeah, I don't know, just stupid, I think, really. But he says, I'm a mature athlete like you. Well, thank you for saying mature and not plain and simple old. So I like you already, Sean. I'm a mature athlete like you and would be interested in a little more details on your training plan. Well, that got me to thinking, and I've already started working on some content for training plan videos, and there's an awful lot to put into this. The first thing I'm going to say is I've got to support and put forward coaches, and getting hold of a coach or sharing a coach or groups working with a coach, going to clubs, that sort of thing, because you will get a huge amount of benefit from that. Now, not all of us can afford a one-to-one coach that we sign up for who produces plans, etc., etc. So I am going to start looking at ideas of training plans, but it is, Sean, a massive, massive area. So I'm going to break it down into some shorter videos of bits and pieces, but you really do need to. I'm giving you my opinion, and I'm a sports coach. I'm a qualified coach in a number of sports, and I've been teaching and coaching sport for many, many years. And I have my idea, lots of other people have other ideas, and it's what works for you. I'm going to start by just giving you 2 hints and tips, and I'll develop these more in a full-on video, or further full-on videos. The first is the concept of periodization, and that is planning the longer term, maybe a year. Think of an Olympic athlete. Some Olympic athletes will actually have a 4-year plan working through to the next Olympics with competitions that they've got in. Their training focus will change and intensity will change, and it's about making sure you get that year right. So that's kind of the first thing. Even if your periodization is winter training, spring training, heading to competitions, post-competition heading into winter. Just something really simple like that. The second thing I'm going to throw out to you as a general, but this needs to tie in with your periodization, as a general format for how you structure those weeks as you go through the year. And I like what I call a 3-1 focus. And that is that I work for 3 weeks in a row where I slowly increase intensity. Now that intensity can be the intensity within a period of time in a session, or it can be increasing the amount of time. So that's partly down to what you're aiming for and partly down to what you have available. And I appreciate many of us are very busy people. So 3 weeks of increasing intensity, and then having a 4th week of very much reduced. And it's a recovery, it's an active recovery week, basically, where we keep things ticking over. We allow the body to sort of regenerate and to make amends and to balance itself out, ready for the next set of block of 4, 3 weeks of increasing intensity again, and so on. So they're the 2 things I'm going to throw out to you at the moment, and that essentially is what I'm doing when I work out my plans. They're the big picture of the plans. Back to the news then, and the solution to a fairly long-running legal battle in triathlon. Last year, 2022, in Ironman Cork, Svenja Toes crossed the line first. She beat Britain's Simone Mitchell, and she was disqualified. And she was disqualified for outside assistance. Now, the battle has been going on and on and on, and we now have a resolution. And Svenja Toes has been given the victory. Simone Mitchell has been sort of demoted to 2nd place, although interestingly, Simone Mitchell has kept her winner's purse, and Svenja Toes has been given the winner's purse. So I think Ironman, I think that's fair from Ironman. Whatever errors or whatever the legal wording has been, and I've not seen, and I don't think many people have seen, the actual outcome of this case other than what's been reported. What's really interesting is that nowhere do we know, how are we told, what that outside assistance was. I do know that in the past, Ironman have been really quite pernickety about outside assistance. I don't know for 100%, but I'm told a story of somebody who picked up a lip balm stick on the run, wiped their lips with it, gave it a clean wipe their lips with it, and threw it back to somebody in the crowd, and they were seen and DQ'd. They were disqualified. Don't take my word for that. It's a story I've heard. But I've heard lots of stories along those lines. So what was the outside assistance? We actually do not know. Benefit for Svenja, apart from now being the winner, well, it bumped her up the PTO rankings a little bit. It didn't really make any difference. I think 20 to 50, you get the same purse. She was in the 30s, and she's gone from 37-ish to 35-ish or for. So it's the same amount of money, $5,000 or something like that. But it's been resolved. Moving across to trail running, something that is very close to my heart, with a couple of pretty sad knees. I try to stay away from concrete and get onto the trails as much as possible. But the trail running community has come together and created its own professional trail running association, a bit like the triathletes did a number of years ago. What are its main aims, or what's the reasoning behind this? Well, they're threefold, or sort of twofold, but one of them's two reasons. You can work it out for yourself. The first is to create more of a level playing field with regards to drugs and drug testing. There's a little bit of a pun in there when you think that the sorts of races that a lot of these people are doing, UTMB, etc., level playing field, not quite. However, level playing field with regards to drugs testing and just making sure it's a clean sport. The second reason is to make the sport more athlete friendly, and the main arm to this, be it the third potential reason, is about sorting out a schedule that makes competing far more realistic and easier for the athletes, rather than switching all over the world but having a pattern to it and just making it a bit more friendly. But also, I would add to that, it would make it more eco-friendly, especially if you've got to fly and travel to different events like that. Back to triathlon, but still running. On Running have signed Christian Blumenfeld, Chelsea Sodaro and Paula Findlay to their stable. In Christian's case, he'll be joining his mate, Gustav Inn, who signed for On Running not too long before Kona. And arguably, he won Kona on the run. I mean, technically, if you win on the run, but it was his great run that won him the World Championships. And in the picture you will see on screen, he's obviously wearing his On Cloud and Christian is wearing his Asics. The shoe that Gustav was running in is the On Cloud Boom Echo 3, and it was quite noticeable that the sole he had in Kona was a little bit thicker than the standard shoe. What's coming up then? Well, I've already mentioned the idea of training plans, and we're going to take quite a good look at that over the next few weeks. But we've got in the pipeline, we've got a review of the Giro Foray bike helmet, the MIPS version. Obviously, I'm not going to do one without MIPS or something similar. And we've also got some Pro-Vis kit to have a look at. We've got a nice jacket, and I'm particularly keen on or interested in a helmet cover, something different. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like, give it a thumbs up, and share it with your friends. If you haven't yet subscribed, well, please click on the little round picture down there. And if you missed last week's vlog, well, we've got a link to that down there. In the top, we've got a link to the Jacob Delta 38 Triathlon saddle, and up there to the Topeak Alien 2 multi-tool. Thank you for watching.